life or define it. You can allow it to destroy you, worry, fear. You can allow your circumstances to just tear you down, and you can let them defeat you, or you can let them define you. Not in a negative sense, but let them to empower you to follow after God. Now, it's a shame. The majority of believers will buckle under the weight of these fiery darts of the devil. Church hurt, and they quit church. A bad circumstance, and they quit on God. Some kind of ailment, and they're just done. The majority of believers will indeed buckle under the weight of these pains and torments. But a brave few, a small minority, have risen above the greatest sorrows and the cruelest tortures and have overcome them in the power of Christ. Last Sunday, we spoke about overcoming sorrow and how it is possible that we can do that. One warrior of the cross who stands among this small majority, he's a part of this number, a part of this troop, is a man named Samuel Morris. Samuel Morris. Samuel Morris was an African prince. An African prince transformed into an inspiring servant. So the story goes, in the 1800s, we have a man named Samuel Morris who, before he met Christ, his name was Kabu. Kabu, you got those weird names. It sounds like you're sneezing. But his name was Kabu. And he was the son of an African chieftain, which made him an African prince. In his boyhood, he lived in this tribe, and he experienced different things like famines and in the primitive side of the world where a lot of these things are common. But what the most grueling thing that he experienced in his boyhood was war. Tribal warfare. One tribe trying to steal and kill and destroy the other, trying to take what they have and torture their enemies. And it was brutal warfare. It was bitter rivalry. And a part of one of these wars between his tribe and a neighboring tribe, the child prince Kabu was captured and mercilessly tortured and held for ransom. Barbaric beatings were a daily occurrence for this young boy, just not even a decade old. And he's experiencing intense beatings that would leave him broken and his spirit broken. And they would do this just to torture him, and they'd hold him for ransom. There came one such day when the boy was enduring a flogging he was pretty much on the brink of death. It was a time where his body was broken, his life was leaving him. It was getting to a point pretty clear that his father could not pay the ransom, and so these evil men just were going to be done with him, beat him to death, flog him to death. And it was in one of these moments where a blinding light came seemingly from nowhere, and it shined in the eyes of his captors, and suddenly the ropes that bound him fell off, and he heard a voice say, "Kabu, rise and flee." He obeyed the voice, and his little feet miraculously led him to a place he'd never been, a mission house. He ran for days in the jungle, starving, running, being pursued, but those little feet carried him all the way to a Christian mission house. At this mission house, Kabu was protected from the rival tribe. He was nursed to health, and he was raised to manhood. During his time there, he was told the story of the gospel. He was told of the light that turned Saul to Paul, the light that had overcome darkness, the light that shined brighter than the sun for all of eternity. And he came to know that the light that rescued him in that day where he was getting flogged to death was the light of Jesus Christ. By the time he reached adulthood, he abandoned his tribal name, and he was christened Samuel Morris. He got saved, and he adopted the name of the missionary who witnessed to him. Samuel Morris was the name he chose. He converted, he was baptized, and he consecrated his life to Christ. By the time he was old enough to be considered a man, he was all sold out for Jesus. As an adult, Samuel was wholly given to the idea of going to America to learn about God so that one day he could go back to his tribes in Africa and show them all the light of Jesus Christ. No one could dissuade him. He was absolutely convinced that if he was to reach the African people, his people, he would need to go to America, learn about God from a pastor there he heard about, and come back with the message. So this boy, who had nothing but his new name, no money, barely rags that clothed him, he went to the coast and he found a ship on its way to New York. Now, I guess they didn't have any money. He went up to the ship's captain and he said, I want to go to New York because I have to find this pastor. And the guy, the American captain, laughs in his face and he tells the boy to get out of here. And he says, no, I'm coming with you. The captain says, well, do you have anything to pay your way? You're not going to ride for free. And he said, my father owns your boat. He will let me pass. And the guy wasn't a believer. But he thought this was the funniest thing in the world. And so he decided, you know what, kid, I like you. Why don't you go ahead? You'll join the ship. I'll work you. You'll pay for your fare by working. So Samuel Morris boarded the ship, a ship full of vile men who cared nothing for Christ. They mocked him for his faith. They mocked him for his nationality, for the color of his skin. They mocked him for his simplicity. And the entire voyage, they were brutal to him, even beating him. But that was something that Samuel Morris was used to. And his good attitude, his manner of living, his joyful spirits eventually led every single sailor on that boat to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. They noticed that Samuel Morris had something that they didn't, where they thought that they were superior to him, where they thought they had a better life than him, a better circumstance than him. They realized that this boy, Samuel Morris, this young boy from Africa, was far better off than they were, and it was because of Jesus Christ. He witnessed to them. They all received Christ as their Savior. Now, the story of Samuel Morris, I said, is nothing but really pain and torment. He got to America, and he went up to the first person, never been to America, never even seen anything like America before. Goes straight into the harbor of New York, finds the first person he meets on the street, and he says, I'm looking for Pastor so-and-so. Do you know where he is? And just by, quote-unquote, chance, the first guy he talked to happened to know who this preacher was. He says, oh yeah, he's over here. I can take you to him. And so Samuel Morris, by the hand of God, was led to this pastor. And in interacting with this pastor, the man made it possible for Samuel Morris to go to a Bible college where he could learn about Christ. Now, the story of Samuel Morris is tragic in many ways because he never made it back to Africa. He actually died of a sickness at this Bible college. He died at the age of 20. So he went to this Bible college wanting to bring the gospel back to his people in Africa. But within just a short amount of time, God took his life, and he never made it back to his homeland. But the reason why Samuel Morris is remembered in church history is because it wasn't about his preaching or even his zeal to go back to Africa. It wasn't because he was some great missionary. The greatest thing about Samuel Morris is he just loved God and believed him. And while he was doing his time in the Bible college, even the short time he was there, his love for God and his simplistic faith inspired the entire college, and the college got a fire lit underneath them. And it is said that untold amount of students went to Africa to be missionaries. And so Samuel Morris never made it back to his homeland. But just because of his love for God and the way he lived his life in faith, there was a whole army that was set there and evangelized where he couldn't. And so what we draw from this is this man, he just trusted and obeyed. This is the type of man who has faith enough to say, it's okay if I don't have any money to get on the ship. God owns that ship anyway. And if he wants me to go, that's where I'm going to go. And so I want to encourage you to have this same kind of childlike faith as Samuel Morris. You don't have to be some great missionary who goes off and sees entire continents turn to Christ. You just have to trust and obey and do what you're called to do. Simply follow, as we were speaking about in our hymns. And so that's the history of Samuel Morris, and we bless God for his story. I want you to go